Live on tape from Jim Rockford's trailer in beautiful Malibu, California, the Season 9 BATTY Awards. Join Rick and Mike as they honor the best and brightest from Season 9 of Battle of the Network shows. Enjoy some complimentary generic beer from the fridge. Test your skills against the random number generator, and glory in the stagecraft and music of recreations of Who Broke My Window, Hankering for a Hunk of Cheese, and Talk It Out. That and a random appearance by Ernest Borgnine next on the Season 9 BATTY Awards. Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series.
Welcome to Battle of the Network shows in the Season 9 BATTY Awards. And I'm Mike.
And I'm Rick. Hello, everyone.
And we're coming to you from Jim Rockford's trailer this time. Surprisingly spacious.
It is surprisingly spacious. I've got to admit, I'm a little surprised at the choice of venue this year, but it's interesting. We've making do pretty well, I think.
You know, the thing was, we couldn't book a venue, but his lock was pretty easy to Jimmy.
Yeah, he's got kind of a cavalier attitude towards home security.
Yeah, you know, and if he shows up, we're hoping to surprise him with a sap to the head.
Yeah.
And maybe a baddie. Maybe a baddie to the head.
That might make it worthwhile. He might forgive the intrusion if he, takes home some hardware.
Yeah. He seems like a guy who never wins awards, but maybe wants to.
We're talking about Jim Rockford or James Garner?
Yeah, Jim Rockford, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he acts like he doesn't want to, but he does want to.
I think you're right on that. I believe I saw a quote from James Garner one time, the actor, of course, who plays Jim Rockford. I think he said something like, I don't care if I win an award as long as Glenn Larson doesn't get it. Which, I think says a lot right there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where I heard that, but I think I heard that somewhere.
So a slightly longer delay than we thought getting these launched, but I want to congratulate you on air for you married friend of the show, Lori. Well, that sounds weird, but you married your girlfriend,
Yes.
Lori.
Yes, I did.
And she is a friend of the show.
All of that is true. Yes.
Yes.
It was a great relationship outside of and also within the show.
Yes.
I think.
Right.
Let me just accept your congratulations and say that we're both very happy, and yes, she's happy to be part of the Literal Podcast family now.
Mm-hmm. And I adopted a dog, so
yes, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Mocha is a fine individual, from what I understand, and
yeah,
it's probably best that she's not in the trailer right now.
Right, it's a little,
it's
a little too exciting.
As spacious as it is, Although there's not too many valuables in here to knock over.
No, but there is a chimpanzee in a space dog suit.
Ah.
That I would think that might throw off a regular dog.
I think so, too.
And in fact, the chimpanzee and the space dog robot suit already caused some problems with the craft services table. So.
Ooh. You know what? I'm just impressed that there's anything at the craft services table, considering Rocky usually takes everything he can that's not bolted down. Although I don't know why you'd bolt down food now that I mention it, but
because Rocky's there.
Yeah, it'd be worth the shot.
Yeah, it was some tacos and some generic beer, I think.
Can't beat tacos and generic beer.
Right, and Sam from the baseball bunch, he caused some problems there too.
Well, Sam's had a hard day learning, playing.
All right. With that, should we get on with the awards?
I think we should. By this point, hopefully they're familiar with the concept of the BATTY Awards. It's our presentation after each season, and just to give the disclaimer, we're not celebrating ourselves, we're celebrating the TV that we've covered throughout the season. A variety of categories, many of them will be familiar to our longtime listeners, and we've got a few surprises, I think, for the fans this year as well. But I just want to point out that we have a blue ribbon nominating commission that gives us the nominees in each category, and we are going to determine the awards right now live on the podcast, right, Mike?
Mm-hmm. We tried to set a time limit per award at about 5 minutes, but it doesn't always work out. Also, if there's a tie, if we can't decide, then we go to a random number generator.
It's really the only fair way to determine a major award, I think.
I think so.
It's kind of, we're revolutionary in that way, if I can pat us on the back, because nobody else is doing that seemingly obvious move.
And in fact, this year, again, is a surprise that we're able to fit this into a trailer, but we actually have a telethon-style tote board with the number generator. So
yes, I wondered what that was. I almost ran into it, actually, on my way in the trailer.
Yeah, it's actually in the parking lot.
Ah.
Along with Bobby and the BOTNS Orchestra, who will be entertaining us throughout, possibly with some appearances by some of our friends. And, maybe the famous chicken will make a surprise appearance.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. Boy, anything can happen when the chicken shows up.
Okay, so, yeah, we have a number of categories. Some of them you might be familiar with. Some of them are somewhat unique to our show. And that's where we're going to start.
Why don't you read the nominees for this first category, Mike?
Sure, okay. This is Outstanding Youth, or Ute, as some people would say. So we have Eddie Munster from the Munsters, Sam from the Baseball Bunch, Kate from the Baseball Bunch, the quote-unquote angry youth from the Talk It Out PSA, and Alfonso Ribeira from the I Can't Tell a Lie PSA.
It's a great group. And what stands out to me is, I hate to say it, I hate to eliminate them already, but the kids from the Baseball Bunch, it's a great group of kids, and Johnny Bench did a great job with them, but they kind of cancel each other out a little bit for me. I would probably eliminate them, and I think for me it would be between the others.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, you don't go to the Baseball Bunch for the kids, even though it's called the Baseball Bunch.
Yeah,
you're there for the baseball players and the wizard.
Yes,
and the chicken
and the hijinks of the chicken. Yes.
Yeah.
Now Eddie Munster. Now, we're really nominating him for his role in the classic Munsters episode. Is that what I'm told here? Not so much the mini Munsters.
Yeah, that's what somebody's saying in my earpiece. It's regular Munsters.
As folks who heard that episode will remember, we talked about the mini Munsters movie, sort of semi-revival of the show, which featured a teenage Eddie Munster. And we also covered an episode of the classic 1960s live-action sitcom. And, Eddie Munster's great, but he didn't have it wasn't really an Eddie Munster episode. And there are a few Eddie Munster episodes, so I would actually eliminate him as well, I think.
Wow, yeah. So it's just down to the PSAs.
One of my favorite episodes we did this season was the PSA episode, and I admit to a little bias because I submitted these PSAs. We each came up with a group that we talked about on the podcast. I like both of them. Alfonso Ribeiro, he's got kind of an advantage because he gets, it's really a showcase for him, the ad, whereas the Talk It Out is kind of a testament to the power of collective youth fellowship, as it were. And it's kind of a one-note thing, whereas Alfonso Ribeiro runs the gamut of, guilt, angst, and even exuberance through the power of song. So, I think you can kind of tell which way I'm leaning here, Mike. What do you think?
Yeah, I can. And I think, Mike, the question I'm about to ask will show you which way I'm leaning. Did the angry youth even have lines?
No.
It was almost a reactive role, right? Everyone was singing to her.
Right. And it's not even clear that she's singing along with them at most parts.
Yeah. I mean, maybe at the end when she finally gets the message.
Now, mind you, there were greats like Mary Pickford, Charlie Chaplin.
Sure.
They were able to emote without spoken dialogue and do a great job.
Yeah, the people that played the Wookiees in the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Thank you. That's where I was going next. Yes. A lot of great, silent and unspeaking roles, but the Angry Youth was more of she was great. She was fine for what it was, but she was more a vehicle for the premise of the ad. I don't know if that's a true outstanding performance.
Yeah.
Although it was youthful.
Yeah, I'm with you, I think, or with what I think your lean is, which is Alfonso.
Yeah,
if he didn't have Pepsi ads and other things to be his star-making turn, you could point at this, I think, and say, well, that made him a star.
I really think this should have been it. And you know what I'd like to think? I'd like to think that Silver Spoons, I'd like to think that he got that role because of this PSA. And moreover, that it was Leonard Lightfoot, former Genius winner, who somehow got him that role, even though that makes no sense whatsoever. But I'd still like to think that. And I think that's a big consideration, me leaning towards Alfonso for this category.
Maybe Leonard Lightfoot was just an act of kindness. But he was like, you know what, I'm leaving this show. Let me give them something.
Right. He passed the baton.
Like, he chose to leave the show. It wasn't.
No.
Something else. Yeah, and I think maybe even when we talked about Silver Spoons, we weren't as favorable towards Alfonso. I mean, he wasn't in the episodes we talked about towards the idea of him, like that it affected the show.
Right.
So I'm happy to, give him some positive feedback in the form
Yes.
of a baddie.
Yeah, I think it's well deserved. I think this is peak Alfonso, despite everything he did afterwards. I don't think he ever bested this.
Yeah. All right. Congratulations, Alfonso.
Yes, well done.
Baddie will be in the mail.
Boy, wait a minute. I don't have to go to the post office again this year, do I? Do we have a commission that does that? I don't. I'm kind of dreading. I have to go in a couple weeks here. And,
I think one of our interns will take care of
okay, that works for me.
That's like the entire internship.
Yes.
Going to the post office.
All right. Well, once again, it's great to start off the show with an infusion of Ute, and I'm glad that we both agreed on that one. I mean, really, if we don't agree, we bring the random number generator in it, so that's something to be thankful for as well. But I think we're ready for the next award. And this, as I see it here, is another great traditional category. It's Outstanding Performance as Oneself. Mike, if you don't mind, I will go ahead and read the nominees for this prestigious category. We start with Dick Van Dyke for the fire safety PSAs, Johnny Bench from the Baseball Bunch, former MLB vet Chet Lemon from the Baseball Bunch, Don Cornelius, host of Soul Train, Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hitman Hearns from the PSA episode, and Ed Asner, also from the PSA episode, the Reading is Fundamental ads. And again, a great group of people playing themselves.
This is a competitive category, I think.
With a lot of professional athletes, I just noticed, that are used to competition.
Right. The late great Ed Asner was a professional athlete, right?
More of a semi-pro.
Yeah. I bet he could have. He could have knocked some heads together. I thought Chet Lemon was great in the Baseball Bunch, educating and everything, but Johnny Bench was better. So of those two, I would personally eliminate Chet Lemon right now, and I would probably eliminate Sugar Ray and Tommy Hearns. I'm not convinced they were acting.
Yes.
No. I'm kidding.
Well, now, hopefully you're suggesting that they weren't acting when you're talking about their zeal to fight drug smuggling.
Right, I'm sure they believe that.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah, there's, I think, more acting like friends.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so far that's where I am.
Let me just get in a plug for Chet Lemon's affability, which he demonstrated very well in that Baseball Bunch episode. If I can jump in here, Mike, I think this category indicates one of the kind of dilemmas we often have in deciding baddies is the endless debate between performance in what we cover and sort of a lifetime and general performance. Why I bring that up is because I'm looking at Don Cornelius, who we love as host of the Soul Train, but didn't necessarily distinguish himself all that much in the episode we covered.
True. He didn't really, he did some light interviews and that was about it.
Yeah. I mean, if we're looking at the totality of Soul Train, then, Don Cornelius certainly gained something, and you could say, is it even fair to compare that against, a couple of brief PSAs like, DVD and Ed Asner are doing here. But for me, the PSA work does stand out a little bit more than Cornelius, and even Johnny Bench, though I loved Bench in that episode. I'm kind of leaning towards the PSAs because they were people, in Bench too, but they were instructing as well as entertaining, and that's a difficult combination. So I hate to say this, but I think I might eliminate Don Cornelius too.
Yeah, I can see that. And we have a tradition here of not holding the brevity of something against a nominee. So Robert Pine won for a commercial.
That's true.
There's precedent. So yeah, I think, again, Johnny Bench was very good and a natural, I think, on TV. And again, he had high affability scores too.
Sure did.
Was that on? I feel like Fleer baseball cards included that as a stat.
Affability.
Affability. Yes.
Yeah, that really set them apart at the time from Tops and Donruss. The affability. I remember, trading cards, at the playground with my friends, and we were right when we got a Fleer, we'd zoom right towards that affability column, all the way kind of on the right. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it would get cut off just a little bit if the printing was uneven, and they came off the sheets poorly. But
right, and probably when you get older and you start doing like what they at least used to call rotisserie baseball, you want some good affability scores on your team.
Yeah,
it's a little hard to measure, and it doesn't come out in the box scores, but you find out their Q rating.
Yes, it's a shame for me that as numbers and statistics have become more prevalent in Major League Baseball, vital categories that are a little bit harder to measure, like affability, they just don't have the same cachet as they used to, and I think that hurts Major League Baseball.
Another victim of Moneyball.
Yes. At least you can still go to the Sandlot and, and kind of just sit in the stands with a hot dog and beer and just judge people's affability for yourself and enjoy a game that way.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how we got to do it.
Now, you know where affability was high affability was not a good stat.
Where's that?
Was when Larry King was playing stickball in Brooklyn.
No, that's very true.
You need the opposite for stickball.
Right.
Exactly. That kid's affable. Okay, so really, I think we're down to Ed Asner and Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, and Ed Asner showing a surprisingly affable side of himself in this ad.
Yes, yeah, and Dick Van Dyke showing his usual affable self, except for in Columbo, but using his sense of humor as part of and his good personality to get across these ideas of fire safety.
Yes, and Ed Asner, of course, talking about reading. A couple of moments in the Ed Asner ad really stand out to me, as we mentioned at the time, him just kind of playfully messing with the kids' hair and just kind of joshing around with the kids. At the same time, though, Dick Van Dyke, boy, it must have been like 5 or 6 ads we talked about, and he was doing physical stuff, verbal stuff, facial expressions.
Yeah,
really a tour de force.
Yeah, and yet for me, it's that singular Ed Asner PSA really does something.
It does. I mean, well, we talked about it. The Ed Asner one stayed with me for years, and obviously the Dick Van Dyke, those spots stayed with you. I think even haunted you in a way for a while. There's something to be said for that.
True. If I had to be haunted by a ghost,
yeah.
Granted, he's still with us.
Yeah.
But Dick Van Dyke as a ghost, I think that's a good way to go.
I think that'd be actually pretty tolerable.
Yeah. Boy,
it's a tough call. 2 legends. What do you think? Do you have a strong lean on this one?
My gut tells me Ed Asner.
I think when we went into this, I was kind of thinking Dick Van Dyke was the favorite, which is saying something because, of course, we don't know the nominees until we, until we see them in front of us here during the show. But it's tough to bet against Dick Van Dyke in anything. But boy, Ed Asner, he just totally nailed it with that, and there's just a certain presence about it. I think he did justice to himself, to kids, and to reading.
Yes.
And not to diminish fire safety, but reading is very important now more than ever, one might say.
Yeah. And when you give a kid what. When you give a kid a book, you give him the world or something like that?
Yeah, it's like, give a kid a book and he'll read for a day, but if you teach a kid to read, he'll read for a lifetime?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Give a kid a book and he'll learn how to fish.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm good with Ed.
I think Ed Asner deserves this, and yeah, we like you said, we lost him recently, but he would ask for no quarter, but he's getting none. He deserves this.
He maybe gave a quarter to that kid he was joshing around with.
Told him to go buy a soda.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Moving on to our next category. Again, a classic Batty category, Outstanding Hair. And the nominees are Clint Walker from Killdozer, Richard Hatch from Battlestar Galactica, Lily Munster from The Munsters, Thundar the Barbarian from Thundar the Barbarian, Gretchen Corbett from The Rockford Files, and Eugene Levy from SCTV.
Ooh. Boy, where do we begin with this one, huh?
Yeah, I hear in the committee there was a little bit of a debate about which Battlestar Galactica person to include.
Oh, really? Well, I can believe that.
They ended up going with Richard Hatch, he of the floppy hair, instead of Dirk Benedict or one of the ladies. But now, to the bookends of these categories, Clint Walker and Eugene Levy both have the distinction of their hair bothering someone. Clint Walker bothered Laurie, right?
That's true, yes.
And Eugene Levy's hair, at least when I was a kid, bothered me.
Yeah. It did.
I don't want to take the. I'm not saying they should be out of the category for that, but it's something to think about. Thundar has the animated, your blonde barbarian hair, kind of just your long hair,
right?
A little bit of a bowl cut. I'm surprised he actually cuts his hair. Maybe Princess Ariel can do that magically. Well, I gotta say, I don't really remember Gretchen Corbett's hair so much from Rockford, and then Lily Munster has her long black hair with the white streak. I don't know. What do you think?
I think something you said about Thundar is telling. I think you kind of said he has your blonde barbarian hair, and it is. It's to me, it's sort of what you expect. It suits the character. It's reasonably well rendered by the animation standards of the day, but it doesn't stand out enough to me to win this category.
It's kind of hair. Maybe another cartoon with a similar feel to it would maybe give its main character.
One might say that. Yes. Pause for audio drop later. Yeah, I don't I don't think I can vote for Thundar. Clint Walker, I think worthy of being mentioned because of the dramatic effect it had on Laurie while we were watching Killdozer. I mean, I think it distracted her throughout the entire movie. But for me, I was not as bothered by it so much. I was not affected by it, and I really wasn't inspired by it either, though. So for me, happy just to be nominated. Clint Walker, I would eliminate him as well.
One impressive thing is it didn't seem to really be affected by his hard hat.
That's a good point, yes.
He didn't really have helmet hair.
No, I hadn't considered that.
But you know who else doesn't have helmet hair?
Who's that?
Richard Hatch. I mean, he kind of always has helmet hair, but
right.
His pilot helmet didn't seem to affect his hair.
No, and he's taken that on and off often several times in an episode. And they do make an effort to get him out of that helmet as soon as possible to showcase that hair. And I think we have to give some weight to the original production. Clearly, they thought they had something in Richard Hatch's hair and tried to showcase it. So I do give some credence to that. I like Gretchen Corbett, as Beth Davenport. Great performance. I do think the fact that the hair doesn't stand out as much to you now, I think that's telling. Maybe it's not her year. Maybe it's not her category here. I would probably go now. One thing about Eugene Levy is maybe you. What do you think his hair is? Is this a general hair for SCTV? Is there a specific look? Just the general. I mean, we definitely get an image in our heads of Eugene Levy.
Yeah, it's like the news guy.
Yeah. That's the one that stands out to me, and I would definitely put that in contention.
Yeah, and his ability to, I'm going to give him credit there, to use his hair for comedic effect.
Yeah, that's right. I don't think anybody else in this list could say that. As impressive as Lily Munster's hair was, it wasn't really part of her, mostly a straight woman role. She didn't necessarily incorporate her hair into that.
Right, but it certainly did add to our sense of her being a vampire lady.
It sure did, yes. For me, it's between Richard Hatch and Eugene Levy, though. I don't think I would go for Lily Munster. Her hair just didn't get enough chances, especially in what we considered to stand out. Whereas Hatch's hair was there front and center, and Eugene Levy, it didn't bother me like it did you, but it always made an impression.
Yeah, it definitely makes an impression. And in fact, I would say even now, it's much shorter, but it's still part of when you think of Eugene Levy, you think of his hair and you think of his eyes, and his voice. But
yes.
Okay, when you think of Eugene Levy, you think of Eugene. Richard Hatch, yeah, I'm personally, I don't know. I think maybe Dirk Benedict had the better hair. Dirk Benedict in that certainly had a more of the time look, I think, which maybe is against it, but a little more blow dry kind of.
Yeah, it's not really a timeless look, and I do think that if you're talking about somebody that arguably didn't even have the best hair in his show, unless you're talking about something like Dynasty, then that's kind of a demerit.
Yeah.
Well, what you said about Eugene Levy and his comic use of his hair, that really stands out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Richard Hatch's hair contributed to the sort of earnest nature of his character.
Right. That's a good point, too.
I think that was his happenstance, or he, it helped him get cast or whatever. It was part of the deal. But I think Eugene Levy actually using his hair as part of his acting toolbox, one might say.
Yes, it was more of an active process on his part.
Yeah, I'm inclined to give it to him, despite my childhood misgivings about it.
Well, you know what? That's very mature of you. That shows how you've grown, and it's interesting to me that even as Eugene Levy's hair has shrunk, your attitude towards it has grown in some ways. I agree with you. I think Eugene Levy had the outstanding hair this season.
Yeah, all right. And, the next category is yours to read. And
Well, I'll take that mantle because although it's mine to read, I look forward to hearing what you have to say first about this group of contenders. This is a new spin on kind of a classic category. We just gave you outstanding hair. Now it's time for outstanding hairpiece. And wow, looking at this here, we've got a great group here. We've got Ricardo Montalban as Mr. Rourke in Fantasy Island, Lorne Greene from Battlestar Galactica, Polly Holliday from Alice, John Calicos from Battlestar Galactica, and from SCTV, Rick Moranis, and I have a note specifically as George Carlin in the sort of the running skit parodying Woody Allen they had in that episode. And wow, what a way to inaugurate a new category, Mike.
Yeah, I believe I suggested this one on air.
Yes, you did.
And so thank you to the committee for taking it up.
Yes. I'm glad they actually listened to the show.
Yeah, and expanding it to include wigs. So it's, hair pieces and wigs. And they also told me that, they did do some research on some of this stuff.
Ooh.
So Ricardo Montalban, for instance, this seems well known that he wore a hairpiece. And in fact, his name comes up in a number of journalistic articles about hairpieces.
We'll have to include some of those in the show notes, maybe.
Yeah, if we can find them again. Lauren Greene, well, I believe he was nominated for Outstanding Hair in his previous appearance. But, afterwards we learned that he had a hairpiece from a friend who was a big Bonanza fan and talked about the fact that, except for Michael Landon, all those guys had hairpieces.
Yeah, I think if Michael Landon had worn a hairpiece, I'd have troubles composing myself and continuing with the podcast. But I did not know that about Lauren Greene.
Yeah, and then John Calicos, again, I mean, it looked like a hairpiece, and it actually gets mentioned in his obituary in The Guardian.
Yes.
Not just any obituary. It's obituary in The Guardian. And then we have, Polly Holliday's red hair wig in Alice, and as you said, Marinus playing George Carlin in his ponytail days.
Yeah.
Some fine wig work there. So the question, I guess, is what exactly are we awarding? Are we awarding the illusion of hair, or just what it does for the character? I'm not sure.
Well, I like the fact that I think that's one thing that distinguishes the baddies is the fact that we don't necessarily have these rules enshrined, and sometimes we don't even know what we are voting for. This is a good example of that. I think if we were voting for the most outstanding simulation of actual hair, I would go one direction, but the way I look at it is outstanding. I'm kind of taking more of a global view as to how it contributes to the characterization and the overall production of the show, and so I would actually eliminate that one, and I'm talking about Lauren Greene.
Right, that's the most realistic hair, but it's not a negative for his performance,
No.
But it's not a positive. Like his beard in Galactica 80, I think, is one of the few positives of that series.
Yes, they did get that one right.
Yeah, I would agree. Whereas John Calicos' hair piece, I think, contributes to, like, that Guardian piece even mentioned that it sort of looked like devil horns a little bit.
Yeah.
But also the idea that character seems like he would maybe have some vanity about things like that too.
No doubt about it. That's correct. And we're kind of getting into the idea of all the outstanding technology that they use in this series. Mm-hmm. It doesn't necessarily have extended to hairpieces, as we see in many episodes, really.
Right.
That's something interesting to consider here. Maybe that's intentional. I mean, maybe that's kind of a philosophical point that the producers deliberately inserted into the series. But for me, Calicos just doesn't really do it for me that much.
All right. And now, what about Mr. Rourke? Ricardo Montalban.
I've got to admit, as a kid, I never would have dreamed that was not Mr. Rourke's real hair. Does that make me, naive? Maybe it did.
Maybe it just, says how good Montalban is.
Yeah. How
his charisma is so powerful that you don't question his hair.
Right. Boy. See, I still have a hard time thinking of that as a hairpiece. I think of it as more as his hair, like kind of like you're getting at just an extension of Rourke himself, and it's kind of hard to see it as a separate component in terms of voting for this category. So it's kind of making it tough for me. Whereas Flo and Polly Holliday, I mean, she's like physically, she almost is like 30% hair, the character herself.
And it is it's part of, when you think of Flo, you think of that hair and the catchphrase and her voice.
Indeed. And almost, I wonder sometimes, this just occurred to me actually, is this a deliberate echoing of the Medusa mythology? Flo's hair, like that of Medusa, a little bit dangerous, was able to lure people from, far-flung locations, in this case, into the diner. That's all I got for that, but, I thought it was worth mentioning.
And then they would eat Mel's famous chili and turn to stone.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. To be a redhead in a sitcom other than Lucy and still have that be part of the iconic, that says a lot.
She carved out her own little area there, and we were just kind of getting at it, but she was seen as quite alluring and very desirable, and really was like kind of the main siren of Arizona. The Flo character was very popular.
Yeah.
And I think a big appeal of it was her hair.
Remember in like 78 or 78? When did the show start again?
Something like 75, I think. 75 or 76.
So like 76, all the women wanted the Flo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was like the Jennifer Aniston thing.
Right.
Just all these redheads walking around.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I don't know if it was ever put to practical use. Like, I don't remember her, like, pulling objects in and out of there like Marge Simpson or, like, putting her gum there. But still, it was an impressive sight. To me, I would give her an edge over, say, Rick Moranis. Now, I love the artificial hair work in that sketch. It's a great example of SCTV doing more with less many times, and Moranis just selling the heck out of it. But I don't think I would vote for him in this category, though.
That was more the cherry on top of the impression.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, it sounds to me like we're saying Flo, Holly Holiday.
I think if Flo deserves anything, I think it's this category. It's almost, which is kind of a surprise because when I first heard rumblings that this might be a category.
All right, me too. Ah. And let's move right into the next category, which is always a favorite. And again, I think unique to our show, outstanding facial hair. So this can include your beards, your mustaches, your Van Dykes, not Dick Van Dyke, but your Van Dyke beards,
right.
Your sideburns, sometimes even eyebrows. There's been some debate about that, but facial hair. I suppose if someone had a big mole and there was a hair coming out, might. And it looks like there might be some controversy in this one, too.
All right, I'm ready for it.
So, Lee Van Cleef from The Master. I'm going to come back to this one. I'll save the controversial one for the end. Dave Thomas as G. Gordon Liddy in SCTV. Robert Walden on The Rockford Files. He was the record producer guy, A&R guy. And character from Mini Munsters.
Yes, I believe Mr. Murdoch was his name.
Mr. Murdoch, okay.
The main gangster.
Yes, and for some reason, the chicken from the baseball bunch.
That's an interesting choice.
It is.
Huh.
So, now I don't think this is as competitive as it has been in the past. Maybe we're a little too 80s centric this time. But, I don't know, do you have any early thoughts here?
Well, I mean, I guess the chicken, I guess we're talking feathers here?
Yeah.
Inherently considered facial hair?
Feathers aren't hair.
No, I...
Only mammals have hair, right? Isn't that one of those distinctive mammalian qualities?
I would think so, but
But I don't think birds have hair.
We need to do a 3-2-1 contact episode about this, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the chicken is not a real chicken, so I don't know exactly what his costume's made out of.
Yeah.
Sorry, our 2 to 11-year-olds, but the chicken is not a real chicken.
Yeah, that may be a bit of a shock to some out there, but had to learn it sometime.
Yeah, you were going to say about G. Gordon Liddy.
Well, it's another example of SCTV doing more with less. In this case, not quite as more as Rick Moranis did with the George Carlin. And, I don't want to compare things in different categories, but to me, coming right on the heels of that, it sort of exposes to me how relatively mundane the stash work was in that sketch. So I would eliminate Dave Thomas and G. Gordon Liddy.
And it didn't stand out as much as Liddy's mustache would stand out later in his life, when he was bald.
Correct.
And so that was like the thing you focused on. But at this point, I guess he still had his hair. Yeah, I agree. The Mr. Murdoch, I don't remember exactly what the facial hair looked like on some of those characters, but I mean, they were just sort of scribbles or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, he had a relatively, sort of a brushy mustache, I think, consisting of, kind of your standard vertical lines.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if I'd call it a stylized mustache. It was not that impressive. I don't know if the character really needed it. It didn't particularly make the character more menacing to me now that I think about it. So that's probably enough to disqualify it.
Lee Van Cleef had a sort of a goatee, right?
Yes. I mean, and it was awesome, as pretty much everything about Lee Van Cleef is. But what might work against it in a way is if it was so great, why did Timothy Van Patten's character Max, why did he not adopt similar facial hair in his journey with the Master? That's something they didn't really get a chance to explore in this series, did they? Maybe they would have gone down that road if they had gotten more than, 13 episodes.
Yeah, that was part of his ninja training.
Yeah. Yes, with like the hood and maybe there's a similar answer to both things. It was awesome, but that was all the more reason to blend in, to make himself be able to really go in the shadows. He would have to cover his mustache or his facial hair. And similarly, it was so awesome that TVP, he really couldn't handle it. As part of his ninja training, he had to get to a certain point before he could adopt that facial hair.
I think so.
It may actually be proof of how awesome it is that nobody else had it. And really, should we make any decisions based on anything that character Max did on the show?
No.
I don't think that should influence us in any way.
Except for in like an opposite way.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. For contrary purposes, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, which I think, by process of elimination, but also I think, honestly, the best facial hair of this category, Robert Baldwin, Rockford Files. He had classic 70s cookie duster.
Yes. Cookie duster, other things, other substances might have found their way in there as well. He was
Uh-huh.
playing a hyperactive record producer.
Yeah.
Studio exec, I guess. Record industry pro, I guess. And he was really good in that.
Yeah.
We both enjoyed that whole performance, really.
And that mustache was a big part of it, I think.
It was.
I'm definitely good with giving it to him.
With Bobby Walden.
Yeah.
Interesting. Again, I think it comes down to for a particular characterization in a particular episode, Robert Walden's mustache was outstanding. Whereas Lee Van Cleef, it's tough to isolate the episode we covered over the course of the series. So maybe I'm penalizing him a little bit much, but I think I agree with you. I think this would have to be considered a bit of an upset, but I think Robert Walden deserves it.
All right.
Okay, well, I think it's time to move on to another traditional category, but one that has not appeared in every BATTY Awards, but when it does, it's well-deserved. And I think we'll get a deserving winner as I look at the nominees in this one. We're talking about Outstanding Dope. And the nominees are Robert Webber from The Rockford Files, Robert Walden, also from The Rockford Files, Mel from Alice, Lieutenant Chapman from The Rockford Files, Zontar from Sctv, Sarat from Thundar the Barbarian, and Timothy Van Patten for The Master. We were just talking about him. Now he makes an appearance in this category. So, Mike, what do you think here?
Well, should mention that a former, I think, at least one-time nominee in this category that maybe could have made it, did not make it this time, which was Cocaine.
I'm proud of us for being able to resist its pull this time.
I think there was a question about whether it actually appeared. It was certainly a plot driver, but yeah, I mean, really, this is a pretty good category. So I'm not sure. I mean, Robert Webber he's a sort of a wily dope.
He is. In some scenes, he looks quite clever, but in other scenes, he's kind of exposed a little bit.
Yes, but it seems like he's clever enough to take advantage of other dopes.
Yes, and unfortunately, he's even able to appeal to members of Jim Rockford's own inner circle.
That's true. And so there's something interesting there. He may be more than a dope. A great song, more than a dope.
Yeah.
And whereas Lieutenant Chapman pretty much falls hook, line, and sinker for his shenanigans.
That's right. And Chapman's a character you kind of want to see get a comeuppance.
Yes.
Which is often kind of a classic attribute of a dope in TV. So Chapman fits the bill there.
And he's a classic, like, bureaucratic dope.
Yes.
Zontar is also a classic bureaucratic dope.
That's a good point, yes.
And then Robert Walden, who, of course, just won for Outstanding Facial Hair. Yeah, I mean, I believe, one could call him. He certainly succumbs to his passions.
That's a good way of putting it. He's somebody that, again, he's kind of sharp in some respects, but he sort of gets caught up in things and ultimately sort of loses control of things, which makes him appear more of a dope.
Mel's
Yeah, I mean, kind of a big lug type of dope, but nevertheless, I mean, and in the episode we talked about, I mean, just the whole thing, I mean, he's worried about money and sort of comes up with the solution to that was a little disappointing and made it seem like, well, why couldn't you have just done this, before?
Right. You mean not give a crap?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and of course we saw his apartment, which was fun. Sarat is a bad wizard, as in not very good at being a wizard.
Mm-hmm.
And Max, TVP, he's definitely a dope.
He sure is.
He runs headlong into everything. He falls for every girl he meets.
And he often fulfills the vital function of, if the master's not poking his nose in, you've got TVP there to lure them into something or get them into trouble or prevent them from leaving when they should. And often he has noble intentions, but it's ultimately sort of the dopey essence that pulls them back into things, and in addition to his overall demeanor, of course.
Yeah. So for me, I would go ahead and eliminate Sarat, and I would say both of the Roberts.
I'm fine with that. I totally agree on Sarat, and I think we already articulated the reasons why they made it to this category as far as the Roberts go, but they're not quite what we're looking for in this category, I think.
So that leaves Mel, Lieutenant Chapman, Zontar, and Max. And as funny as Zontar is, and as annoying as Lieutenant Chapman is, to me it comes down between Mel and Max.
I was thinking the same thing. Chapman's annoying, but often he's a little too annoying for the show. I would rule him out. And yeah, Zontar was amusing, but again, not quite what we're looking for. To me, yeah, I agree. Two sort of different types of dopes, but kind of more both in the benign dope category.
Mm-hmm. Both dopes with a heart of gold.
Yeah, yeah.
With hearts of gold.
And that's valuable. To me, Mel in this episode was dopey, and I may be contradicting, what I've said earlier tonight in these awards, but I lean kind of more towards the overall pure dopiness of TVP, whereas Mel often displays, much more acumen than he lets on, and I think there's sort of some hidden layers there, whereas when you're looking at Max, it's kind of what you see is what you get.
Yeah, I think so. And what you get is a dope.
Yes. I think there's something to be said. I mean, I think as soon as we found our way into the series, and, again, thanks to Ryan from our Facebook group for suggesting that as a series, I think as soon as we got in there, it stood out to us like, boy, Timothy Van Patt's character is kind of, he just stood out right away. I think the category was made for this kind of character in some ways, as opposed to on the benign dope side.
Yeah. A lot of times it's like dumb kids and stuff. And
right.
Like if Max were a kid, he would get into some kind of jam that the chips would have to save him.
Yep, that's very good encapsulation of this character, and also a great Lost Chips episode that we never saw.
Right. So, congratulations to...
Sure. Hey, an award's an award.
Yes. All right. Moving on to Outstanding Villain. And the nominees are Winterbolt from Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July, the Cylons from Battlestar Galactica, the Gangster from Mini Munsters, Satan from Fantasy Island, the Killdozer from Killdozer, Voltak from Thundar, and Robert Pine as the shady businessman on The Master.
Oh boy. Well, we've been breezing through these a little bit, of course giving due deliberation to each category, but this looks to me like the toughest one yet. We're sitting here looking at these distinguished people. I believe this is the first time a Genius winner has come back in a competitive category.
I think so.
With Robert Pine, Genius Emeritus. But, I'm looking at this list here and, seeing the names, oh yeah, that was a bad guy. And then you see Satan, that
right.
That kind of stops you in your tracks a little bit, doesn't it?
It does. It's hard to vote against Satan in this category. I mean, I think we have before, maybe with Christopher Lee, we might have.
Yes.
But this is a different Satan.
Well, that Satan was more of a supporting character, whereas this Satan, as portrayed by Roddy McDowall, was really part of the whole main event in Fantasy Island. I'll tell you who somebody else that makes you stand in your tracks is Killdozer, and often to the victim's detriment.
Right.
Because they sometimes would literally stay right there in their tracks or in the Killdozer's tracks.
Yes.
A memorable villainous turn for sure.
Yeah, and yet I would say the Killdozer, I mean, is it, we don't know anything about it, so is it just following like instinct? I mean, it's some sort of alien entity that has possessed the bulldozer.
Yes.
So first of all, we're not judging the bulldozer itself.
Yeah, of course not, no.
Yes, but is the Killdozer just like following some sort of biological imperative? It does, although it does seem to think things through sometimes. It makes a strategy to destroy their campsite and their radio and things like that. So I take away that reservation right now. It seemed to have some agency.
I agree. Well, I think I would eliminate Murdoch again from the Mini Monsters episode. He was a rather pedestrian villain, more of a plot device than anything else.
Right, and honest, what was he up to? What?
Yes.
He's trying to ruin the world, I guess, to make a buck.
And, Voltak from Thundar, I wasn't that impressed by this villain either.
Yeah.
Fine for within the episode, it was cool. I believe that was the Henry Corden role, right?
Yeah.
But, not enough for this category, I think.
Right. Now, what about Winterbolt?
I enjoyed Winterbolt, and talk about somebody who goes through, various, machinations and sings a little bit, menaces. Now, is Winterbolt the outstanding villain? I don't know. It's respectable. Maybe not the best Rankin Bass villain, but not necessarily someone I would eliminate right away. But I can tell you, probably not going to beat some of the others in this category.
Yeah. Well, and to give him some points, he never turned good as many Rankin Bass villains do.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Winter Warlock, his sort of twin, who does make a face turn. Would that be?
Yes.
Return. Yeah, and of course, he just ends up as a tree. And we can't judge on success because all of these villains failed.
Correct.
So, there's the Cylons, who of course are robots out to destroy humanity.
Definitely iconic TV characters, the Cylons. I think in a way they're hurt by the fact that, really in the episode we covered, there wasn't one singular standout Cylon. Right.
I mean, there was one of the bronze ones or whatever, but they're just kind of bossier.
Yeah.
Other than, the other sort of models of Cylons in the series, like Lucifer, they're not very distinct.
No.
They are quite formidable as a force, as a collective, but like you said, there's no standout.
Yeah, as a voter right now, I'm giving more weight to some of these singular villains as opposed to like the Cylons would have to be judged collectively, and I think that kind of hurts them to me.
So I would say at this point we definitely have. Is it Satan versus Robert Pine? Are we to that point?
Yeah, I think we are. We haven't talked really about Pine on the Master. Was it Austin Beaumont? Was it or
that sounds right? Yeah.
a great name?
Yes.
And very smarmy. Someone sort of working his way in the elite parts of Louisiana society, I guess.
Apparently, in a long line of sleazy people in that family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had that. He was a secret weapons dealer. They're also going to run for the state Senate, I think.
Yeah, many aspects to that character as well.
And great performance, of course. And he even was the kind of man who knew some things about ninjas.
Yeah, he was educated. He was not a rube.
Yes.
However, I do think that in this case, Robert Pine may have not been served totally well by the show around him. And I think some limitations of the show and the script may have slightly held back what could have been maybe an all-timer performance. I think we need to talk a little bit about Roddy McDowall as Satan because we loved that episode so much and how good he was.
Yeah, and really he was good by, I'm not going to say underplaying, but certainly didn't overplay.
He wasn't like a shouty devil. He was quietly menacing. Even he laughed a few times. He seemed to be enjoying what he was doing.
Yeah, and I mean, he had that stillness, which I think partially maybe came from how they filmed him, but it really worked. It made him more intimidating and like just confident. Like in the other episode he features in, which I still haven't watched all of, but he's just walking around in normal light and everything, and it's far less interesting. Him standing in weird lighting in the shadows and with smoke machines and things.
Well, he's a worthy adversary for Rourke, I think, which says something considering how awesome Rourke is and how powerful he is. You actually kind of almost contradicted a point I was going to make, which is that he appears in another episode, and I agree with you that the return episode of that character, of Satan and Fantasy Island, was not nearly as effective as the first one. However, at a glance, if you're looking at all these characters and you think, like, who would you most like to see come back in another episode? It's got to be, the Roddy McDowall as Satan, right? And I think that says something for the character that it was so good that... And there was a definitive ending, but they also left the door open in a way that was realistic, as Fantasy Island could be, but really made you want to see that character come back again. And I think that's a strong vote in favor of the Roddy McDowall performance here.
Yes, I think so. And yeah, I just find it hard to vote against him. I don't know why.
Wait a minute.
I mean, like I met a guy in the street the other day who...
Do you feel you're beholden to this character somehow?
Yeah, I mean, he did a favor for me. And,
oh boy. Well, if this means a big increase in our podcast listenership, soon.
Well, yes. Sure, we might be giving up our souls, but...
Wait, we? What? What do you mean we?
Well, this is a partnership. It's...
Who will? Sounds like we're voting for Satan.
Yes.
Whether we like it or not.
All right. Moving on.
Okay, yes, please, let's...
Yes, I believe this is your category.
Aha, okay, well, I'm proud to present another traditional category, Outstanding Non-Human. And through the years, longtime Batty followers will know that this covers a lot of ground. It could be animals, it could be inanimate objects sometimes, extraterrestrial beings, all kinds of things make up Outstanding Non-Human, and it looks like we got another great group this time out. So we have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer from Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July, as well as his co-star Frosty the Snowman from the same special. We have a pair from the Munsters, Herman Munster and Grandpa Munster. We have Killdozer from the television movie of the same name, and returning is from the baseball bunch, The Chicken. And those are the nominees for Outstanding Non-Human, Mike.
Yeah, quite a category again. I don't know. I don't even know where to start. Timer, I don't remember. Right, he's a concept. If the things I read were correct, he's the concept of time passing in your body or something. But frankly...
Yes, you know what? I believe I may have not read Timer.
Oh, I might. He might be on my list by mistake. So let's eliminate Timer.
Okay. So a little bit of controversy, but...
Apologies to Timer for getting your hopes up.
Yes.
Okay, so we got the Killdozer, we get the chicken. Grandpa, Herman, Rudolph, Frost. I'm gonna just very quickly, in my opinion, if I had to choose one of the Munsters characters, I would choose Herman. As much as I love Al Lewis's performance as Grandpa, Herman's the star of that.
Well, I agree. In this, recently I compiled some power rankings for various things that we covered and had to make this choice myself. I don't argue with you, but one thing I'll mention is it possible that part of the appeal of the Munsters to the general public was that they were showing the more human qualities of non-human characters, and therefore does that make them less worthy of being outstanding non-human in this category?
That's a very deep question.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to it.
No.
I do think there's enough ambiguity with Killdozer. I might eliminate Killdozer.
Yeah, he's a bit one note too. It's a bit one note.
And I'll agree with you with Herman over Grandpa.
Rudolph and Frosty. Now, they are some of the most non-human things here. Because Herman and Grandpa, I mean, technically they used to be human. Probably. Certainly there are jokes about Herman being assembled in a lab.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they mentioned the dead body part. But
no, they get around that a little bit.
And presumably Grandpa wasn't born. Although his daughter is a vampire.
True.
It's the Munsters.
Yeah.
I better stop asking questions like that. Rudolph is obviously a magical deer, and Frosty is a snowman.
Well, and we've got the chicken.
Yeah.
Your mileage may vary with the chicken. He was obviously included as comic relief, and I think we talked about him. He was seen as having an essential role on the program. Personally, I could do without the chicken, actually. I like him in small doses on the show, and it's because of, seeing a category we don't have this year, the outstanding exasperation that Johnny Bench would often show with his antics. I don't think I'm ready to vote for the chicken in this category, though.
Okay.
And I'm going to make an assertion here with the Christmas in July characters. I much prefer Rudolph in his own special, the original Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. In this one, I mean, part of it's the writing. I don't want to penalize the performance too much, but he does some things that are pretty dopey, actually. He makes poor choices. He often seems like kind of a little bit more passive than you'd like. Frosty doesn't always make the best decisions, but there's something about his can-do spirit and his, just his general optimism and I don't know, just the way he lives life and his performance. I much preferred Frosty to Rudolph in that special, now that I think about it.
Yeah, and he makes all these sacrifices for his family and for his friends that maybe Rudolph doesn't make.
I mean, Rudolph's nice, but Frosty has like a nobility to him. So I would eliminate Rudolph as well, because Frosty is so much cooler in that special. No pun intended.
Okay, so we're down to Frosty and Herman.
Yeah, I guess we are.
Wow, both kind-hearted. Herman, one could call him a little dopey too.
Yes, both family men.
Both family men, yeah. Herman, in this case, sort of succumbs to his desires a little bit in their obsessive searching for the treasure. But it works out. He's fine.
Yeah. I mean, he's basically a decent sort.
Now, yeah, I do think Frosty in that situation. Say if Frosty were in the Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Okay.
I mean, he would melt, but
yes.
I feel like he would just be, you take the gold, and he'd be fine.
He's definitely not as materialistic as Herman is.
No.
I do think a lot of it is Herman wanting to make good, make things better for his family. But of course, that's, what Frosty wants too. A bit reckless sometimes, but I'm a little torn here. I love the Herman Munster character, but there's something about the outstanding non-human aspect of it that makes me lean towards Frosty a bit here.
Yeah, okay. You know what? I can go with that.
Yeah?
Yeah. Love Herman, of course.
Yeah.
I think it's not his last chance.
No, we may see him later, and it's one of the all-time great characters. But so is Frosty. Maybe I feel good about giving Frosty this one. It seems more suited for him, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Congratulations to Frosty.
Yeah, way to go.
And that moves us on to Outstanding Theme Song with Lyrics. Very small category this time.
Wow.
We have Alice, Baseball Bunch, which has an asterisk, and Soul Train.
Oh boy. Man, just the fact that there's only 3 titles in this category. I don't think we've ever had this few choices in what's usually a loaded and incredibly difficult category.
Yeah, I think maybe the only time we did, we just combined it, all the theme songs into one. But
well, I should mention the reason there's an asterisk for the Baseball Bunch is because we didn't actually hear the Baseball Bunch theme song.
Right.
Because for some reason we went into this in the podcast. You can't find it online. And all the Baseball Bunch footage, for some reason, scrubs that theme song. I don't want to blame ASCAP, impresario, or maybe Chief Paul Williams. But we've praised you many times in the show. If you can do something about this, please, help us out. Make the theme song accessible again.
Just for the hell of it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. I think that alone is enough to disqualify the baseball bunch, but I'm glad we at least recognized it here.
Yeah.
As something that should be included.
Back to, I don't even quite remember it, and maybe also, and couldn't hear it too, other than the instrumental version. So that leaves us Alice and Soul Train, and this is a little tough to me, because the Alice theme song kind of annoys me.
Ooh.
But then I know you said the Soul Train is not like the best Soul Train theme song.
Yeah, there's multiple versions of that Soul Train theme song, and Soul Train song isn't really known for its lyrics. It, the simplicity of the lyrics, maybe it's memorable. Boy, the Alice theme song annoys me too. So much so that I bought 4 seasons of to watch digitally, and it's kind of like there's something about it though. That little skip intro option you often see when you watch something streaming.
Yeah.
I really hate doing that, and every now and then I'll do it though in certain circumstances. I feel it's disrespectful, but there's something about the Alice theme song that sort of makes me want to do that, but I just can't. It just seems like it's an essential part of the show. Like it sets you up, the whole experience. You're getting it, not just because it sets up the premise of the show, which of course we love, but there's just something about it. It sets some kind of tone for what you're going to get. And I feel like I'm cheating myself if I watch an episode of Alice without getting that theme song.
That you're going to get Linda Lavin singing. That's part of it. It's at least setting you up that might happen.
Yeah, and maybe it's bracing you, maybe. Maybe it's it's kind of a cautionary part of the show. Am I really advocating voting for Alice over Soul Train? I think I am.
I think you are, yeah. And I don't think I can disagree.
Well,
it's weird, but...
Yeah, I mean, and again, there's multiple versions of Alice theme song too, but they're all pretty much annoying, and they're all Linda Lavin singing and doing various levels of scatting.
Yes, and then the end credits get even worse.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on this one.
No.
Maybe we should just give it to Alice and move away from it.
Yeah.
All right.
Moving on.
Well, I guess this goes to me then. Yes, once again, we've divided the theme songs into lyric-based songs and instrumental theme songs, and in the latter category we have The Master, Sctv, Rockford Files, Battlestar Galactica, Thundar, The Munsters, and Fantasy Island. Ooh, wow, this is going to be tough, I think.
This is, we've said it before this time, but boy, this is a competitive category. I think I can vote against Sctv. Other than that, though, it's really tough.
It is. We have some of the most beloved songs in TV history on this list.
Right. And, I did express some issues with the Rockford Files theme song from a taste point of view. Mm-hmm. But I recognize its quality, and, I'm not going to hold... we just gave the Alice song Batty, so
yeah.
I certainly can't hold the harmonica against the Rockford song.
No.
Master song is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Again, by the composer of the Rocky theme. Battlestar Galactica theme song is majestic, orchestral, really suits the show. Thundar, I would say, is in the same category as the Master. A very fun theme, cool theme song. A mix of orchestral and sort of jazzy rock. The Munsters is, it's awesome. And Fantasy Island helps, much like Alice, set the stage of just that feeling of you're something different. Go with the plane onto the island. It's a little dreamy.
Yeah, it has its ethereal qualities for sure. I think on this list I would eliminate Thundar the Barbarian, though. It just doesn't quite stack up against the other ones.
All right. So, leaves us with the Master, Battlestar Galactica, Rockford, and the Munsters, and Fantasy Island.
I believe the Master, as cool as it is, the show just isn't strong enough to support overcoming some of these other ones.
Right.
So, I think it's really cool, and it speaks well of the show that we would even consider it against some of these other iconic themes. But I would also eliminate that from contention here. But I will say that, it was in my head for, weeks after I kind of dove into the Master.
Yeah.
And now, talking about it, I kind of want to hear it again.
Yeah.
Which is a very good sign. But I don't think it deserves the Batty, though.
Yeah, I would probably, even though I just was speaking vaguely poetically about it, the Fantasy Island I would eliminate.
And beautiful poetic speaking it was, too, Mike.
Oh, thank you.
I do agree with you, though, that we can eliminate that one.
Like that, it's not the thing you remember from that opening. You remember Tattoo.
Yeah.
So that's Munsters, Battlestar Galactica, or Rockford, which is not, those are 3 very different songs.
They are. The Rockford Files theme song, and this is something that we've kind of, I didn't really watch Rockford much growing up. I came to it more later in life and really getting into it because of the podcast. So to me, it seems like, and I could be very wrong here. I feel like the Rockford theme song is iconic because of the show, not so much because of the song itself. I think, people have a warm feeling about Rockford Files, and the theme song is certainly part of it. But would it stand on its own without, if not for the show being so popular?
It was a hit.
It was. It was because at the time it was associated with the TV show. Yeah, to me Rockford is kind of number 3 in this group, and that's not demeaning it. I really like it. My personal pick of the 3, and this may surprise some people, is Battlestar Galactica.
It doesn't surprise me.
I talked about it on the podcast. I love the majesty of it, as you said, and the way it works with the show. And my main case for it is it makes you think the show is better than it is. And I think I talked about it. I love the show. I really enjoyed watching it, but if you watch, you don't think it's necessarily as cheesy as it is at times when you watch that opening. The opening makes it seem totally big league. A lot of times the episodes and some of the effects were bush league, but the show seemed like A-list all the way if you just watch the introduction and the opening, in my opinion. And I think Stu Phillips and his orchestra are a big part of that. And apologies to James Garner, but Glenn Larson, I think, has a credit on that one too, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Uh-oh. I don't want James Garner to punch me out, but yeah, I'm making my case for Battlestar over Rockford, at least.
Yeah, and then the Munsters, I mean, again, it's Hollywood rock and roll, but it is a lot of fun, and it suits the show. But I agree. I mean, the Battlestar Galactica song, it's aspirational,
Yes.
it's cinematic, bombastic, and yet, like John Williams, it has all of those qualities, but it's very melodic and memorable, simple in its own way. Yeah, I think that's our winner.
Yeah, and I'll say another. I'll give props again to the Munsters because I don't think you can really listen to that without smiling and getting excited about the show itself. But it's just, to me, I love the Battlestar theme so much that it's just number 1 for me. No shame for the Munsters. A great song. I think this might be one of the more controversial awards of the evening. Yeah, I agree. I think it should be Battlestar.
All right, so that takes us to Outstanding Song, which is a song that appeared within the context of a show. And the nominees are the Who Broke My Window song, which we already has a winner with Alfonso Ribeiro, outstanding. The Work It Out song from PSA. From Soul Train, The Emotions, Best of My Love, and Maze's While I'm Alone. Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July. Don't Let the Parade Pass You By, performed by Ethel Merman. And You're Everything I Ever Wanted, performed by Red Buttons. And No Bed of Roses, performed by Rudolph.
Well, it's a deep group. Boy, it's tough here. Some of these songs we might have to talk about whether to separate them from the context of the show or not. For example, The Emotions, Best of My Love was, I think, a number 1 song. Did it really blow people away on Soul Train? I don't know. I think I actually have I have 2 clear favorites here. But let me talk first about the Rudolph and Frosty special. I think if I go back here, No Bed of Roses is kind of, again, Rudolph. The show didn't do him many favors in some cases. No Bed of Roses was a little bit more of a morose number. I don't think it can compete with the other 2. I much prefer the Ethel Merman song and the Red Buttons song. So I would eliminate No Bed of Roses right away. It doesn't stand out as much to me. Whereas You're Everything I Ever Wanted it's a sweet song. It's a great case of, that sort of speak singing. I think Red Buttons did a good job. He infused a lot of heart into that performance. And I think it's actually appeared twice in this special. I think there was a little later version of it later. He sort of brought it back, after the events of the special. On the other hand, Don't Let the Parade Pass You By, Ethel Merman, I mean, it's classic Ethel Merman. Talk about bombastic. Ethel Merman is always such, and this is, but it's in a good way. It's the joy of a good parade, and also kind of the joy about going out and living your life, see the parade, take things into your own hands, do things, and it's all like in a fun little package, and you see elephants dancing around and stuff like that. Great number there. The Soul Train songs don't stand out as much to me. They're fine songs. The Maze one is good, and the PSA ones are ones I love. I love both of those, as we talked about. Those were from some of the Church of the Latter-day Saints PSAs that I proposed we discuss. I'm sorry, the Who Broke My Window was, the Work It Out was the vague Institute for Betterment of Mental Health or something among teens, or some organization we don't even know exists anymore. But I love those ones. Who Broke My Window is opera. Work It Out is, it hit me all over, really. Yet it was very short.
Work It Out is the one that had a We Are the World aspect to it, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm reading this correctly, that would narrow it down to the 2 PSA songs and Ethel and Red.
Correct. Those my initial reaction seeing these nominees. Yes.
I'm on board with all of that.
Okay.
And personally, I could narrow it down for me to Who Broke My Window, Don't Let the Parade Pass You By.
I think that's fair. As much as I like to Work It Out, it's really kind of, it's more of a few lines. It seems like almost like incomplete in a way that Who Broke My Window doesn't. I mean, it had a beginning, middle, and end, really, that song. So I can eliminate Work It Out.
And like you're everything I wanted. It didn't stand out to me in really a sea of songs. That's special.
Yeah, it was nice, but again, kind of the speak singing, it's just not. It's not one of the standout Rankin Bass numbers. So yeah, I would agree. Let's eliminate that.
So it's down to two.
Yeah.
Ethel Merman blowing the roof off the dump,
Mm-hmm.
and Alfonso and the guy.
Yeah. Now I will say that I think the Ethel Merman song. I think you'd probably have to go back and listen to it to really appreciate it. It's not one that is catchy as the Who Broke My Window. But for me though, I saw that ad, the Who Broke My Window PSA. I saw that so many times as a kid that I'm not really sure. You know, I assume that it's catchy. It sure seems like it, but I also saw it a bunch of times. Whereas I didn't see Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July every year, so I could be off on that.
Let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I mean, I think we know the answer to that.
you know what? It was Who Broke My Window.
Yeah, can't tell a lie.
I forgot about that. Wow. I think that says it all right there.
I think so.
That was a landmark moment in the podcast.
No offense to the great Ethel Merman, who got a lot of mentions this season.
Yeah, she sure did. And Ethel Merman's not somebody that necessarily inspires you to sing. She sort of inspires you to kind of like, just sort of like brace yourself and take it, or curl up in a ball or something, or, you know, sort of contain it a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Who Broke My Window. I think you nailed it with that valuable piece of information, Mike.
All right.
How could we not vote for that? It's got to be it.
So, we're going to move on to our two listener voted on categories. So we posted these on our Facebook group and allowed people to vote. The first category was Outstanding SCTV Cast Member. Now, the rules included we were only counting people who appeared in the episode of SCTV that we discussed. So, no Tony Rosato.
That was a little controversial, but...
Martin Short or Robin Duke.
Right.
Or Hal Ramis. The nominees were John Candy, Rick Moranis, Joe Flaherty, Eugene Levy, Andrea Martin, Dave Thomas, Catherine O'Hara, and Bonar Bain. So, the winner, there was a little bit of competition between John Candy and Moranis, but the great John Candy won out.
Wow.
Unfortunately, Catherine O'Hara and Bonar Bain did not get any votes, which is a shame.
It is a shame.
But Catherine O'Hara had a big year. So
she did. Yeah, shed no tears for her, but I'm going to shed some tears for Bonar Bain, though.
Yeah, it was tough to find any category for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he couldn't be himself because he was playing Hank Bain.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so congratulations to John Candy.
Yes, the people have spoken.
Yeah. The other category was Outstanding Catchphrase. So these were catchphrases from episodes we talked about, or shows we talked about this season, not the history of television. So we had Kiss My Grits from Flo from Alice, The Plane Boss the Plane, Tattoo from Fantasy Island. We got Blowed Up Real Good from Big Jim and Billy Saul from SCTV. Stow It Nell from Alice. I'm Don Cornelius and We Wish You Love, Peace and Soul from Don Cornelius. And Lords of Light and Demon Dogs, both from Thundar the Barbarian. I tell you, neither of those got any votes. And we're actually in a tie situation here.
Whoa.
Yes, between Kiss My Grits and The Plane.
Oh.
So you know what that means. Random number generator.
That's right. No ties. This isn't soccer, folks. There must be a winner.
That's right. So I'm going to go to the random number generator. Odd number will be Kiss My Grits. Even number will be The Plane.
Of course.
And why don't you pick a range? What's the minimum number?
The minimum number for this is going to be 229.
Okay. And the maximum?
On the upper end, it of course would be 496.
Oh, of course. And the 242, which means...
That's an even number?
So, the Tattoo wins that.
Wow. Ooh.
Yeah, so close.
Ooh.
One number off, and Flo would have won.
You can't get any closer than that.
No.
Oh, boy. After a tie vote, well... again, the people have spoken and the random number generator has spoken, which is kind of an extension of the people in some ways. I don't know if I would have voted. I don't think I would have voted that way in either of these categories, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't think I would have either. But that's what makes it great.
I can only assume that the Thundar catchphrases, they canceled each other out with the voting, and people are just overwhelmed, and that's why they didn't get any votes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The question to me is, like, which catchphrase would you rather have on a trucker hat if you were wearing it around, or maybe a good iron-on with a ringer T-shirt. To me, I would probably have gone with Kiss My Grits, but...
Yeah, I think that's where I would have gone to.
That's not to undermine the will of the people, but I'm a little surprised. But Deplane was huge in its day.
You know where you might see, if Kiss My Grits were still a big catchphrase out there, I feel like it would be on sweatpants, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. think you're right. While we're talking about merchandise, would this be a good time to mention our official Battle of the Network show's merchandise store?
Hey, yes, at TeePublic. You can find a link at our website. That's the easiest way, but we have a number of designs. We have logo designs. We have Rewind Stubbs, our mascot design. We have a special Batty version of him, or will soon. And we have the exciting caricature design, which is sort of the idea is it's what might happen at a Batty's or a Batty's after party. And a friend of mine, Art Hondros, illustrated a number of our favorite actors and characters in a chaotic scene reminiscent of Mad Magazine, and it's certainly one of my favorite things we've done involving this podcast. So go check that out if you want to help out the show a little bit and get something cool. Get a sticker. You can get a print. T-shirts, sweatshirts, masks, throw pillows. I actually recently got a logo throw pillow. Pretty nice, and you can get them in different sizes, which I didn't realize. And tapestries.
Matter of fact, I just ordered I think it's going to be a gift for me, but we've just ordered a tapestry of Art's, beautiful drawing and also a magnet of that design as well. I like the idea of having that displayed, and it, I can, with the magnet, I can have it in one room and have the tapestry. We've got a great spot picked out for it, and I'm really anxious to get that.
Yeah, I assume they're weaving it as we speak.
Yes.
Some nuns or something are weaving it. Yeah, I am very curious to see that.
Yeah, but people have asked us sometimes about supporting the show, and it's great that you download, listen to it, and help us out maybe by contributing in the Facebook group, visiting the website. But we do get a portion of the sales if you're interested in kind of helping us and contributing. As Mike said, this is a way to do so, and maybe get a cool T-shirt or a mug or something like that. Hopefully with a design that really appeals to you. Like Mike said, we've got great options now and more on the way. So yeah, visit us at the TeePublic store, and that's a great way to support the podcast.
So we're going to take a little break here, and we'll be back in a few minutes with the rest of the show, the quote-unquote big categories.
In Memoriam, Season 9 Baddies. Bruce Kirby, Cloris Leachman, Cicely Tyson, Alan Burns, Frank Lupo, Irv Cross, Jim Crockett Jr., Roger Mudd, Henry Darrow, Jessica Walter, Larry McMurtry, Walter Okowitz, James Hampton, Felix Sia, Billy Hayes, Norman Lloyd, Charles Grodin, Paul Souls, Arlene Golanka, Douglas Kramer, Clarence Williams III, Ned Beatty, Larry Gelman, Gavin McLeod, Frank Bonner, Ann Beats, Herb Schlosser, Ed Asner, Willard Scott, Marky Post, Jane Withers, William Smith, Charlie Robinson, Paul Orndorff, Jackie Mason, Ron Popeil, Bobby Eaton, Art Matrano, Michael Constantine, Irma Kalish, Jay Sandrich, David DePatie, Alan Coulter, Val Basolio, William Lucking, Joanna Cameron, Peter Scolari, Dean Stockwell.
Welcome back to the Season 9 BATTY Awards, and I'm still Mike.
And I'm still Rick.
And we're still in Jim Rockford's trailer.
Yeah, we are. We're having a good time in here.
Yeah, the parking lot is actually filled up quite a bit with different just goings on. There's a little bit of a barbecue going on out there, and some surfers showed up. That's good.
Jim Rockford hasn't shown up, but we haven't had any thugs show up looking for Jim Rockford, so I consider myself lucky in that regard, too.
Angel showed up briefly. Yeah.
Well,
I think he conned Lauren Greene out of his hairpiece.
Oh, man. Always up to something, that Angel.
Indeed.
Although Lauren Greene is too, to be fair.
Yeah.
Not saying he deserved to lose his hairpiece, but
no. So I think the next category is yours to read.
Okay, well I will take it then. And that category is Outstanding Supporting Female. And Mike, I'm looking at these names, and I think this may be one of the strongest versions of this category we've ever seen. And this is our 9th baddies. The names are Gretchen Corbett for Rockford Files, Polly Holiday for Alice, Beth Howland for Alice, Mabel King for The Master, Carol Lindley for Fantasy Island, and Arlene Golanka for Fantasy Island. Ooh, this is a pretty good group, Mike.
It is a pretty good group. And I'm going to go ahead and eliminate someone.
to show how deep and strong it is, you're going to eliminate a couple right off the bat. I like that.
Yes. I think Beth Howland, the Vera character, she's perfect as that character, even though the character can be a little bit exasperating audience. But I think it also, at least at that point of Alice, was a little bit one note for me.
Yeah, you know what? If I just interject, that was like, the second or third season?
Yeah. I know they did more with her later.
Yeah, you're right. It was early on.
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah.
It almost sounded like she was already, a tired character.
Yeah, no. I think it's the opposite. They just hadn't developed her.
Okay, I apologize.
As more than sort of the goop.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and Mabel King was a lot of fun in The Master, but I feel like I'm gonna eliminate like almost the entire category.
Wow, you're on a roll.
The two Fantasy Island actresses, they did a good job too. But I guess if I were going to choose one to stick with, it would be Carol Lindley.
Right.
Since she had more to do. And the Arlene, sort of the reveal about her character was no fault of hers, but it didn't seem like she was necessarily playing that to the audience.
I agree.
But Gretchen Corbett, great as that character, and of course Polly Holiday, we've already said some good things about her between Kiss My Grits and her red hair, her wig, an iconic character. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would eliminate the same ones you did. I do want to say that pound for pound, even Mabel King's performance was impressive, and she didn't get a whole lot of screen time, but she made the most of it.
Yeah, along with Robert Pine, really making the most of maybe a not great meal.
Yes. Can we say that Mabel King was a force of nature in that episode?
We probably could, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Polly Holiday and Gretchen Corbett, two very, very different kind of performances. The Flo character, interestingly, Mike, it occurs to me as I look at those two together here, I think they both loom larger in the consciousness than they actually appeared in the show. Remember, Flo left after several seasons. The show actually had more seasons without her than with her. She, of course, got a spinoff, which didn't last and then didn't return to the show. And Gretchen Corbett, we talked about, she was not in as many episodes of The Rockford Files as people might think. She was in, kind of a fraction of them. And she left kind of under, not entirely clear circumstances. Yet both are considered, very essential parts of the show, I would say. And I think the Rockford Files episode that we considered, it was a good showcase for her because it demonstrated the practical side of her character, but, gave her, some chances to show some concern and, some of that affection for Jim. Maybe not entirely built around her, but she had a few things to do in that episode.
Yeah, and she showed some fire.
Yes.
She really didn't like Robert Webber's character.
Right. It's tough. I don't really have a strong choice. I guess maybe I'd lean towards the Beth Davenport for Rockford Files. Yeah, because I'm thinking in this case I'm thinking specifically that episode. But we also had a good chance for Flo trying to persuade Mel.
You're right.
Not to get rid of her. She kind of had to use her feminine wiles and draw on past history. And it was a good demonstration of the relationship she had with the other characters and some kind of, the interesting dynamic that goes on between the waitresses sometimes, too, that competitiveness there. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I guess here's the thing. It is supporting actor, and she might have been too big for the show.
Her hair might have been too big for the show.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going in that angle, the supporting aspect of it would definitely go to Gretchen Corbett. And that helps make it a tough decision easier for me, so I think maybe I would like to go in that direction.
Okay, let's go in that direction.
All right. Gretchen Corbett, congratulations.
Okay, now that takes us to Outstanding Female. So the lead, we have Linda Lavin as Alice, Yvonne DiCarlo as Lily Munster from the Munsters, Princess Ariel from Thundar, Andrea Martin as various characters on SCTV, Anne Lockhart from Battlestar Galactica, and also Lorette Spang from Battlestar Galactica.
Well, it's another good group, Mike. I think I'm going to eliminate Princess Ariel from Thundar, though.
Yeah.
You know,
If there were a best barbarian category or best wizard category, Thundar might be doing better.
yeah, it's just not the night for Thundar, and I would probably eliminate the Battlestar Galactica ladies.
Yeah, I don't think that the show ever quite. I'm not gonna say didn't do right by those characters, but maybe didn't have. They weren't in the forefront.
Correct. I just can't pick one of them for Outstanding Female, though. I think the book we mentioned, By Your Command, I believe it's called.
Yeah,
I'm reading that right now, and it makes an interesting point early on talking about the show that while it may not have always had the most positive or progressive portrayals of females, it also avoided the usual trope of having the
cliche.
yes, the usual cliche of having women be victimized and have to be rescued. That was not something that the show actually what the show did was it would provide other women on other planets for them to rescue,
or men crashing on planets.
Yes,
and having to be rescued while they were rescuing women.
Right. So I thought that was worth mentioning, but yeah, not the night for these two. Yvonne DiCarlo was great. Didn't always have a lot to do, but was pretty good at just being a mediator often between Grandpa and Herman and showing how difficult that is, and sometimes having to be the practical one, but was very good in that. She's a contender for me for sure. Linda Lavin as Alice, I mean, controversial. Quirky sometimes, played for the cheap seats often, but did carry a show for, nine seasons. Andrea Martin stands out to me. Can you consider her a lead female? I say why not? She was a lead female in many of the sketches she was in, and she was outstanding in it. So to me, that makes her an outstanding lead female, and I'd have a tough time voting against her, really. She was one of my favorites on SCTV.
Yeah, she was up there in your power rankings, right?
Yeah, I think she's one of the more underrated, probably one of the more underrated, comedy figures of TV and this generation. So for me, it's between Yvonne DiCarlo, Andrea Martin, and I got to give Linda Lavin credit for, carrying the show. She's the most lead female of all of these, but I'm not sure she's number one on my list either.
Right, yeah. I think I agree, and I have the same lean towards Andrea Martin. She was kind of doing many of the same things that both of the others were doing. I mean, sometimes she was a little bit of the straight man, I guess, but normally she was pretty wacky. But I mean, she opened up that show with the children's show host. And, of course, was the Edith Brickley. And, yeah, she's great.
The funny thing to me, too, is I'm not a huge fan of the Edith Brickley character. It's not one of my favorites of hers. But I do think, in general, she elevates a lot of what she has. I mean, you could probably give her stuff and know that, it'll be better with her than it would be with most other people. And like that opening sketch, with her as the female, or the kids show host, I thought that was great, in no small part due to her. So
yeah, I think I can sign off on that.
Yeah, I think maybe Lily Munster, she would probably have to have like a showcase episode for me to vote for her. But not to take anything away from her, but I think I would go with Andrea Martin over her.
Okay, congratulations, Andrea Martin.
Yeah,
and let's move along here.
Okay, and it's Outstanding Supporting Male. And Mike, this category is much like the Outstanding Supporting Female, only male. And looks like we got whoa, boy, this is going to be a tough one. We got Joe Santos from the Rockford Files, Noah Beery from the Rockford Files, Vic Tayback from Alice, Hervé Villachez from Fantasy Island, Carl Betts from Killdozer, Adam West from Fantasy Island, Herb Jefferson from Battlestar Galactica, and Al Lewis from the Munsters.
Man, this category is so big that I only just realized that one of your favorite guys didn't make it.
Well, Bonner Bain?
Yeah, but Bonner Bain and your buddy from Alice.
Henry from Alice?
Yes.
That's right, yeah. I mean, that just goes to show you how strong this category. This might be one of the strongest categories I've ever seen in the baddies.
Yeah.
We've got a mix of personal favorites for me and TV icons. And yeah, Henry Marvin Kaplan, outstanding. I would argue maybe he should have been included here, but hey, who am I to say?
Right.
It's
up to the Blue Ribbon Panel Commission.
Yes.
Committee.
I think it was an oversight on their part. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. So, if we got to take people out, I guess we do. I hate to say Adam West, but Adam West, I think just because the role was not a huge role.
Fair enough.
I mean, he was good and a little different, a little low key, but he was fourth banana in that storyline. And personal taste, I would choose, if I had to choose one from the Rockfords, I think I would choose Joe Santos. But I haven't seen, well, we're only talking about this episode, so I don't want to judge one way or the other on anyone there.
I do agree with you. I think as beloved as the Rocky character is, I prefer Dennis and Joe Santos of the two on Rockford Files.
So Carl Betts was the sour ball.
Yes.
In Killdozer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I did enjoy his performance. Is it up there with Vic Tayback? Or Al Lewis? I don't think so. Herb Jefferson was great as Boomer, Battlestar Galactica. It had some stuff to do in that episode. Maybe not a highlight episode. He got a little bit sidelined, like in story, but he was important to the story, and yet not quite as important, of course, as Apollo and Starbuck.
Of course.
I don't want to hold that against him, but again, we gotta make a choice.
Yeah, I think Boomer that's over the course of the series. Yeah, but as far as this episode, not so much.
So right now that leaves us with Joe Santos, Vic Tayback, Hervé Villachez, and Al Lewis. What are your thoughts on those four?
Well, to me, Fantasy Island isn't about Tattoo, it's about Rourke. I will say that Hervé Villachez actually did have quite a lot to do. He was more directly involved in this, one of the fantasies than he sometimes is. So if you're into the Tattoo character, then this is a pretty good episode for him. But there's no way I would vote for him over some of the other people in this category. So I would eliminate him.
Agreed. I can envision him walking away disappointed.
Yeah. And would you give him a patronizing but still affectionate smile?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To me, it's really between Vic Tayback and Al Lewis.
Yeah, I agree.
And I hate having to even consider such a choice. They're two of my favorite characters. Oh boy, they were both outstanding.
Yes, and there were showcase episodes.
Yes. In the episode, the series level, we can't eliminate either one that way, I don't think. Joe Santos, Rockford, if we haven't eliminated him already, he's solid support. The character, he's just a solid guy. But can't compete with the other two, in my opinion. It's really between Mel and Grandpa. And I think I need some help because I'm not...
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the two episodes and trying to, and I'm even thinking about the series as a whole and
Yeah. Do we maybe need to go to the generator?
It would be a lot easier for me to live with myself if we went to the random number generator.
The cold, hard math of the random number generator.
Yeah, this decision's too important to be left to us, I think.
Okay. Well, so odd is Vic,
Mm-hmm.
even as Al. You'd like him to give me a range again?
Well, I would, as I consider the shows in Alice and Munsters, I would go with a range of 113 to 780.
Right. Let's see what we got. 122. So that's Al Lewis, correct?
Ooh, that is Al Lewis, even number.
Again.
Well, congratulations, and hey, no shame, Vic Tayback. You lost to one of the greats.
Yeah.
And some would say you didn't even really lose.
Right. Imagine those two together.
Ooh.
Surprised Al Lewis didn't somehow show up on Alice.
He would have been very good on that.
I think so, yeah. Could have been a regular.
Yeah, or even just like as a disgruntled customer, as a one-timer. They could have done a lot with him for sure.
Okay, so that takes us to Outstanding Male. And this is going to be a tough one too, I think.
Oh, not getting any easier.
We have James Garner from the Rockford Files. Lee Van Cleef from The Master. Fred Gwynne from The Munsters. Ricardo Montalban from Fantasy Island. Clint Walker from Killdozer. Lorne Greene from Battlestar Galactica. Richard Hatch from Battlestar Galactica. And Dirk Benedict from Battlestar Galactica.
Well, I'm sure Dirk Benedict's glad that he's in this category and not snubbed like he was in the Best Hair.
Right, and not losing to Gil Gerard in the Best Second-Rate Harrison Ford category.
Right.
He would have a better chance this time around.
Yeah, well, to me, oh, geez. Okay, I got to eliminate Clint Walker for Killdozer. He was fine, and, we had a great time with the movie, but can't do it here. And Lee Van Cleef, I mean, the master, the show's just not fully on his level. I'm going to eliminate those two. Much as I love Battlestar Galactica, it's tough for me to pick any one of these three individuals. Of the three, I really loved Lorne Greene's character. I dug his constant bickering with bureaucrats and his bizarre obsession sometimes with his own pursuits.
Yeah, his religious fervor.
Yes. I thought there was an interesting conflict sometimes between what was best for the group and maybe he was a little short-sighted in some of what he was pursuing. I thought that's interesting, and he was great, and he gave the proper gravitas to the commander role. But I don't think he deserves to win this one. To me, it's between, again, three icons: James Garner, Fred Gwynne, and Ricardo Montalban.
Yes.
Any one of those, I would be, happy if they won this award, and I could go, I would have have no regrets voting for any one of those, really.
Right. Yeah, me neither. And they all have different qualities. Garner, it's that laid back but a little annoyed, put upon thing. Fred Gwynne is hilarious, but also gives Herman a lot of heart. And Ricardo is charisma personified, and certainly had a lot to do in this episode and held his own against Satan.
We know that Rockford Files was basically written for James Garner, but you could really see the other shows being written for those guys too, for Gwynne and Ricardo, which is really testament to how good they are. I would eliminate Fred Gwynne from that group of three just because I like the other shows better. I enjoy the other characters just a little bit better than Herman Munster. Pains me to say it, but we're at the tippy top here, so we got to eliminate somebody. That's who I would eliminate first.
Okay, I can agree with that.
Okay,
I know where I lean on this, but of these two a little bit, but I'm leaning more James Garner.
Mm-hmm.
But Ricardo's Montalban is great in that role, and certainly that episode is a standout episode for him. But I don't know, James Garner is that show.
He is. Now, to me, Ricardo Montalban is Fantasy Island, but we also love Fantasy Island for the guest stars and some of the scenarios. Yeah, the episode we chose was really centered on Rourke. I think Rourke is I think that character deserves more credit as one of the most interesting characters in the BOTNS era. At the same time, we can't deny that James Garner is one of the most beloved TV performers of all time. He was great in everything, and he draws you in right away. And I guess I would kind of lean towards James Garner because he's doing on a show that's almost deliberately not about gimmicks. I mean, we talked about some of like the special episodes that they're not really gimmick episodes, but they're maybe parodies or commenting on certain things. But it's just a good, solid show, like a lot of it, The Rockford Files, and it doesn't rely on a lot of other stuff. And a lot of times, James Garner is really in just about every scene and carrying the show, whereas Fantasy Island, it does use a lot of the other elements, as kind of as you alluded to it, so it's not necessarily all about Rourke. So in this tough choice, I can see, leaning towards James Garner, who created one of the great characters.
Yeah, I agree with everything you say, and I feel like because Fantasy Island was an anthology and also about the guest stars, like I don't know how much Rockford, evolved over the series either, but certainly Mr. Rourke seems to be a fixed figure. Although he got challenged in this episode.
He did. I think if you, again, I just said, the character was written for James Garner, so it's kind of pointless in a way, but it'd be tough to make this kind of show so appealing. Actually, I mean, maybe that's kind of the answer is, if you had this kind of show with another actor, it wouldn't be as memorable. It would just be kind of more of a run-of-the-mill private investigator show. But the fact that you could build it around James Garner and take advantage of that elevates it into something, a lot more fun.
I think so. I'm down with James Garner.
Okay. I think we should, yeah.
Again, not to take away from any of the other great nominees.
So if you're keeping score, that's James Garner 1 and Glenn Larson 1, I think?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
it's time for the best episode, and again, we'll mention this is not the best episode of the podcast. Hopefully you think they're all great, I always say, but it's the best episode that we talked about on the show. So, reading off here, we've got SCTV's Zontar, The Baseball Bunch, the Chet Lemon episode, Alice, which for some reason I don't have the episode written down here. I have to get on the commission about that. But the episode of Alice that we covered, The Master, Fat Tuesday, Soul Train, which is with guests Maze and The Emotions, The Munsters, which I believe was Treasure of Mockingbird Heights, Fantasy Island, Thundar, City of Evil, and Battlestar Galactica, which was the final episode of that series.
Should the Rockford Files be on there?
The Rockford Files should be on there. Did I not read the Rockford Files?
It's not on my list.
The Rockford Files should be on there. I think we can go ahead and assume that there was a oversight there again.
Right. This is normally a category that's just, it doesn't even really need the committee.
That's right. It was the Oracle War Kashmir, I believe.
Yes. Okay. So, I think we can go ahead and say goodbye to Thundar, right?
Yeah, let's go ahead and say goodbye to Thundar. No. Yeah, with Soul Train, we're limited kind of by what's available there. We couldn't just cherry pick, what are considered the best episodes because we wanted to make sure that we had a full episode. So
The Master, while probably the best episode of The Master, is the best episode of The Master.
Yes, well said.
And then the Baseball Bunch, again, another fine episode. We learned a lot about baseball, learned some about health, we learned some baseball history, but presumably that happened on most or all episodes of the Baseball Bunch. So I could eliminate that. And that would leave us with Zontar, Alice episode, Rockford Files, The Munsters, and Fantasy Island at Battlestar Galactica.
Yes, Fantasy Island was the devil and Mandy Bream / Instant Millionaire. Now, one thing about Fantasy Island is and maybe I should this is a good time to bring this up. The one episode, the Devil and Mandy Breen part was much stronger than the other part.
Yeah.
So maybe that works against it. I think if it was just the Devil and Mandy Breen, that would be my number one standout. I'm not so sure when we consider the totality of the episode and kind of balance it with the Artie Johnson, Arlene Galanka part.
Yeah, that part was entertaining. And again, Tattoo got to be a bigger part of that. And that was fun, but a weaker half.
Yes, and I would actually eliminate the Alice episode as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great example of Alice, but, not necessarily a standout episode of television. As much as I have a twisted affection for the show, I would eliminate that.
So that narrows it down to Zontar, the Munsters, Rockford, and Battlestar Galactica?
Yes, it does.
It's a pretty good episode of Battlestar Galactica and managed to serve as a finale sort of by accident.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing to do. They did manage to... They accomplished a lot in that episode, and it was really a good example of the series. I'm not saying that just because we picked it to talk about it, but it's just like some of those episodes, they don't really feel like Battlestar, but that one, despite, as you say, like wrapping up some things and being a reasonable finale, it feels like Battlestar Galactica. And it was good, yeah.
Was it as good as some of the other ones? So.
Yeah. The Munsters episode was very funny. We had a great time kind of going into the past a little bit with that one.
I think if I were choosing, of the two comedies in that, I would choose SCTV over that, though.
Interesting. Yeah, and one thing when it comes to SCTV, it's not... I think we talked about the fact that, a lot of people remember it as sketches and not necessarily full episodes, but this was a thematic episode that had a lot of, things tying it together and did that pretty well.
Yeah.
However, I would say for me, those thematic elements, they weren't necessarily my favorite parts of the episode. I mean, there was Bonar, but when I think about the episode, the highlights to me are the ones that are just kind of the sketches they were showing that were unrelated to the storyline. So for me, that's kind of a reason for me to maybe go with one of the other ones over that.
Yeah, I think so. So does that leave us just with Rockford and Battlestar, or are we still considering the Munster?
I'm okay with eliminating the Munsters. Yeah, I could go along with that. And so between Rockford and Battlestar, I mean, I will say this. As episodes, and we might have a showdown in the next category too with these.
Uh-huh.
Might be in contention. This episode of the Rockford Files stands out to me more as an episode. Like, I remember more, it's more vivid in my mind. It has the multiple guest appearances, who we talked about earlier. It has like most of the main characters that you would know from Rockford Files, and it combines them into a story that's very entertaining, and it has a satisfying ending as well. Whereas Battlestar Galactica, I tend to like have an affection for the show as a whole more than individual episodes. And, we're not criticizing it. We've said some great things about it. But, if we're talking about the best episode, I'm not sure. I might lean towards Rockford Files on this one.
Definitely where I lean. And I think that episode is pretty, Battlestar is in the higher echelon, but maybe not, it's not the best episode of Battlestar. Not necessarily this is the best episode of Rockford, but it's a very good episode and of a very good show.
Right. And part of it comes down to, I mean, we could get into kind of issues of like continuity and the recurring storylines, but I would say this, if we were going to sit down and watch one of these two, we had to watch one of these two, which would you rather watch over again?
Rockford.
Yeah, me too.
At this point, yeah.
Me too. I think that's the deciding factor here for me.
Okay, congratulations. That's 2 for Jim Garner, 1 for Glenn Larson.
Yes. Ooh.
And that takes us to the final category that we're choosing on air here. This is best show. So this is considering really the whole of the show, the entirety of the show. So again, Rockford Files, SCTV, Alice, The Baseball Bunch, The Master, Soul Train, The Munsters, Fantasy Island, Thundar, and Battlestar Galactica. What are your thoughts?
That covers it, doesn't it? My thoughts are that we're going to have some tough discussions, so I think I'm going to eliminate a few right now. Thundar.
Yep.
As is tradition now, is going to be the first to go. We enjoyed it, but yeah. The Master, again, enjoyed doing it, but not in this category. Soul Train, we didn't mention it earlier, but Soul Train won our listeners poll.
That's right.
For which music series to do this year, and I was a little surprised that it won, but I was very much enjoyed covering it, but yeah, we wouldn't consider it here. Same with Baseball Bunch. Liked revisiting it, and again, we kind of watched it in chopped up form anyway. Doesn't linger as much as the other ones do. So that gives, Rockford, SCTV, Alice, The Munsters, Fantasy Island, and Battlestar Galactica. And, I mean, those are kind of my initial thoughts. I would probably eliminate Fantasy Island. I love the Rourke character, but the show is not always as consistent as some of the other ones. It's a tough one. And I'd probably eliminate The Munsters, too, because as much as I enjoy The Munsters now, I just don't have the same affection for it as I do some other stuff I watched when I was growing up. And I would eliminate Alice. While I'm at it.
Yeah.
I think I've said all I can say about Alice. not necessarily tonight, but in the other episode, please go back and listen to it if you haven't already. If you want to hear me explain why anybody should or would watch Alice.
Yes.
But I'm not going to vote it for best show.
The fact that you consider your watching of it an affliction maybe says something.
I think it does, right.
So does that just leave us with Rockford, SCTV, and Battlestar?
It does, yeah. Are you all right with that?
Yeah, I am. And I wonder if SCTV, its overall quality and I think influence, despite its historically low ratings.
Yeah.
And continued influence even now, you can't deny, but being a sketch show, I think, much like Fantasy Island, it kind of automatically makes it inconsistent.
Plus the changing formats and time slots and lengths and cast members over the years, it makes it harder for me to consider it for this.
Yeah, and I love Battlestar for what it is, and I definitely have a nostalgia for it, but Rockford's an all-time classic.
Yeah, Battlestar I'm almost like most glad that we did Battlestar on the podcast because, it kind of motivated me to get the Blu-rays, which I loved, and it's really the most pleasant surprise of many of these shows that we've revisited since we started the podcast, and I've become, even more of a fan of it afterwards, but it had 20 episodes of it?
Yeah.
Whereas, Rockford, I think I probably watched 20 episodes just preparing for the show, and they were all really good and not even necessarily cherry picking the best ones. Again, I'm still watching it now. It's something I kind of missed out on when it was on, but I enjoy revisiting it. And I think you just got to give weight to what Rockford did and the fact that it was, 6 seasons worth as opposed to one single season of Battlestar Galactica. So, I'd lean Rockford too.
We got a bit of a Columbo situation here at the end. Rockford running away with the...
Yes, and Cheers.
And Cheers, yeah, but it's hard to not deny it.
Well, Rockford opened our season, did it not?
It did,
and it's closing it in fine fashion, and I don't think you could have a lot of disagreement with it.
For once, not the underdog.
No.
So that just leaves us with the Genius Award, the Robert Pine Genius Award. So would you like to explain that and reveal the winner?
Well, sure. Or, I could maybe explain the award and you could reveal the winner.
Say it at the same time.
Okay. Yes. What we call the Robert Pine Genius Award is a way to recognize an individual who doesn't necessarily get as much recognition as we feel they should. Somebody who brings a certain something to everything they do. Past winners have included Michael Conrad, Leonard Lightfoot, we mentioned, but it began with Robert Pine. And please, if you haven't already listened to our Lowenbrow episode from way back in the day, you really get the genesis of everything. Not Genesee, that's a different beer, but the genesis of how we came up with this award. And of course, we presented Robert Pine himself with the award, and it's named after him, as well it should be. And each season we just want to recognize somebody that we feel stands out and makes just everything they do is better because of that individual. Would you say that's a good way of explaining the philosophy of the Genius Award, Mike?
I think that's a perfect way. And we tend to go for maybe lesser recognized people or character actors or rather than near leads. So in this case, as much praise as we've heaped on Jim Garner and Rockford, he wasn't up really for it in the way some other people were.
Yeah, these are the kind of... The Genius Award goes to the folks that aren't necessarily... They aren't in the outstanding, lead categories at the Emmys or anything like that. Maybe they get nominated or recognized in some way, but not people that are the main stars of the show.
Right. So, with that, we should give this award on the count of 3.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Joe Flaherty
from SCTV.
Yes.
We've said a lot of good things about him on our episode about SCTV, and one of those guys who could play kind of anybody, I think, or can't play, we should say, because he's still around. And of course, a writer too. I mean, that's a unique part of that show, that they were writing it. He was one of the...
Right, and, I can understand why John Candy got the Listener Award earlier, and some other people on the show that we mentioned, Catherine O'Hara, they found success after SCTV, and where Joe Flaherty is just... He just kind of stands out as maybe part of the heart and soul of SCTV. He was excellent on that, and that's kind of still what you remember him for. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. He was great on it.
Yeah, and he was there the whole time.
Yes. I mean, just some of his... I mean, he always cracked me up with his Bing Crosby impersonation.
Yeah, a lot of great characters, and... Of course, he's Caballero, but also, the host of the horror show and the newscaster and all sorts of people. And just a great range. And as we said, great at playing drunk. Just, I think, like you said, the heart of that show in a way. Mm-hmm. Congratulations to Mr. Flaherty.
Yes, definitely deserving and glad to recognize him as another in the line of geniuses that we have assembled in our Batty history. Well, you know what? It seems like we didn't have a lot of our patented knockdown, drag-out arguments that we have had in years past.
That's true.
I think we agreed on a lot of the categories early on. Maybe that speaks to the strength of some of the winners, I think.
But a good group of nominees for sure.
Yep.
A season full of variety.
Mm-hmm.
And we're glad you joined us for this. And, season 10 is in the offing somewhere.
Yeah.
We're certainly starting to hammer it out. And in the meantime, again, you can support us through our TeePublic store. And if you can visit our website, of course, battleofthenetworkshows.com. And if you want to participate in any way, you could drop us a message at mailbag@battleofthenetworkshows.com. Or if you're on Facebook and so inclined, you could join our Facebook group, answer a few questions, and a lot of fun discussions there.
That's right. Come join us, and we're always looking for good suggestions. I will say that by the time you hear this, we probably will have a lot of season 10 locked in, but we always like hearing from people and what they would like to have us talk about on the podcast. So suggestions along those lines are always welcome.
And again, thanks for listening. It makes us feel good that you're out there.
Yes.
And congratulations to all our winners.
And even congratulations to some of the not winners.
Yeah.
Because most of them did a great job as well.
Correct. Now, let's get out of Rockford's trailer before he gets home.
Yeah.
Someone else can clean it up. Well,
yeah, we did a pretty good job. It's relatively, it wasn't all that tidy when we got in here, to be honest.
Right. Somebody needs to get that chimpanzee out.
Yeah, and it's not going to be me.
Me neither. Joe Flaherty, that's part of your winning the Genius Award.
Yep, there you go.
Where's Greg Evigan when you need him?
This episode brought to you by beautiful Malibu, California. This episode also brought to you by the generosity of Rocky Rockford. This episode also brought to you by the spirit of good-natured competition. Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network Shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows, and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/BattleOfTheNetworkShows.